the adequacy of the policy and legal framework governing the railway transport subsector. We've also looked at the contribution of the railway transport subsector to the socio-economic development of the country. We've looked at opportunities and challenges associated with the railway transport subsector, best practices in the Southern African region, as well as the adequacy of the railway network system in Zambia with regard to infrastructure. And lastly, we've made recommendations as well. So I'll start with the adequacy of the policy and legal framework governing the railway transport subsector, where we see that the current legislative framework for the railway sector in Zambia consists mainly of the Railway Act of 1994 and Tazara Act of 1995. The Railways Act of 1994 establishes the legal foundation for railway operations in Zambia by outlining the functions of ZRL, or Zambia Railways Limited, and sets forth guidelines for safety, tracks, services, and the rights and responsibilities of railway operators and users. The Tazara Act of 1995 pertains to the establishment and operation of the Tanzania-Zambia Railway Authority, or Tazara. This act gives to effect the agreement relating to the Tanzania-Zambia Railway made between the government of Tanzania and the government of the Republic of Zambia on the 29th of September 1993. However, we see that the legislative framework is outdated and does not meet the necessary requirements, regulatory requirements, and railway occupational health and safety. We also see that the policy framework governing the railway transport subsector is the National Transport Policy, and Zambia's National Transport Policy aims to enhance the facilitatory role of the transport sector in both social and economic development of the public and private sectors. Regarding the railway sector, the National Transport Policy aims to transform this subsector into an efficient, reliable, safe, and competitive transport mode with appropriate interfaces with the other modes of transport. The policy also aims to review and repeal pieces of legislation that govern the railway sector in order to support the transformation of the sector. We have an example of the Railways Act, which will be amended to create an appropriate legal and institutional framework for the railway subsector. Then, through the implementation of the National Transport Policy, government will also develop a legal and institutional framework for the development and maintenance of the railway infrastructure, which includes railway operations and regulation. So we can see that the policy framework governing the railway subsector is adequate and has the potential to support its growth and development if well implemented. In the second place, we see the contribution of the railway transport subsector to the socio-economic development of the country, where we see that the railway transport subsector plays a crucial role in the socio-economic development of Zambia because it's integral to enabling trade as well as enhancing connectivity and promoting regional integration. And I'll articulate a few of the ways in which the railway transport subsector contributes in this regard. So first, we see that the railways provide vital connections between Zambia and our neighboring countries, which include South Africa, Tanzania, and the PMRC. This connectivity enhances cross-border trade, which allows Zambian businesses to access international markets and participate in regional supply chains. We also see that the rail transport is generally more cost-effective for transporting large volumes of goods compared to road transport, and this cost advantage can lead to lower prices for consumers as well as increased profitability for businesses. Then we see also that the railway sector stimulates the development of related industries such as logistics, warehousing, and maintenance services, which then creates job opportunities as well as enhances overall economic activity in regions with rail infrastructure. Lastly, we see an efficient railway system supports Zambia's participation in regional trade agreements, which makes Zambia an attractive destination for foreign investment and trade partnerships. In the third place, we look at the opportunities and challenges in the railway transport subsector. And I'll start with the challenges. Among the several challenges of the Zambian railway sector, which has made it an an attractive mode of transport is that the average speed of locomotives is about 40 kilometers per hour, which is too slow in modern business and commerce where people and corporate entities want their goods to move in real-time speed. Then much of Zambia's rail infrastructure includes tracks, bridges and rolling stock are aging and in need of significant maintenance and upgrading. And this deterioration can lead to delays, inefficiency as well as safety hazards. Then there has traditionally been a lack of sufficient investment in maintenance and upgrades, and this has contributed to the decline in overall service quality. And the growth of the road transport sector has also led to competition for cargo and passenger traffic. Many businesses and individuals prefer road transport for its flexibility and speed, often overlooking the advantages of rail. Maybe we move on to the opportunities now. We see that there is a significant opportunity for public-private partnerships to finance and implement modernization projects aimed at upgrading existing railway infrastructure, including tracks, signaling systems, and rolling stock. Then there's we see that expanding the rail network to underserved regions can also improve connectivity and accessibility, which then facilitates economic activities as well as reduces transportation costs. Then developing intermodal transport systems that connect rail with road, air, and waterways can also enhance logistics efficiency and expand market access for goods, which can then create more holistic transportation solutions for businesses. And strengthening partnerships with neighboring countries on cross-border rail projects can enhance Zambia's role in regional trade, which then creates new opportunities for export and import activities. Then lastly, I think opportunities exist to establish training institutes focused on developing technical skills relevant to the railway sector, including engineering, operations, and management. I'll hand over to my colleague.
Thank you, Chair. We'll look at what some of the best practices of rail transport in Southern Africa. Southern Africa has several best practices in rail transport that can serve as lessons for Zambia. These practices focus on improving efficiency, safety, connectivity, and sustainability within the sector. First example is South Africa, where the Transnet, the state-owned freight transport company, has embraced PPPs to enhance its rail transport infrastructure. Initiatives like the Durban Port and Rail Corridor Development have leveraged private sector investment, expertise, and efficiency, thereby facilitating modernized and expanded services. South Africa rail operators have initiated projects focused on electrification of the rail lines to reduce reliance on diesel, minimizing the carbon footprint. The Gauteng is a modern high-speed rail system that connects Joburg, Pretoria, and Ora Tambo International Airport. It has successfully integrated rail with urban transport, showcasing efficiency, safety, and comfort for commuters. When we move to Botswana, Botswana has invested in modernizing its rail infrastructure, including signaling systems and track upgrades to improve safety and capacity. This modernization has contributed to increase freight traffic and enhance service reliability. When we look at Namibia, Namibia has developed a robust intermodal transport system connecting rail with road and sea transport. The integration of Walvis Bay Port with rail network has positioned Namibia as a crucial logistic hub for regional trade. Zimbabwe has focused on training programs for rail workers to improve skills and operational capabilities of its workforce. This includes collaboration with technical institutions to provide relevant training in maintenance and operations. You look at the adequacy of the rail network system infrastructure in Zambia. Zambia's rail network spans approximately 3,000 kilometers, connecting key industries and commercial centers, including Lusaka and Ndola Livingstone, as well as linking to neighboring countries such as South Africa, Zimbabwe, and DRC. The primary rail lines, such as those operated by Zambia Rails Limited, connect to regional networks, facilitating access to ports for export, notably the Port of Durban in South Africa and Port of Walvis Bay in Namibia. However, there are gaps in coverage in sub-remote areas, limiting access to regions that could benefit from rail transport. Much of Zambia rail infrastructure is aging and requires significant rehabilitation. Reports indicate that some sections of the rail network suffer from poor track conditions, leading to slow speed and reduced safety. Upgrading may need to prevent derailment and enhance reliability. There has been challenges with regular maintenance due to budget constraint and insufficient funds allocated to infrastructure upkeep. This has led to deterioration of rail lines, rolling stock, and impacting service quality. Efforts for rehabilitation have been going on, but the scale and pace of necessary repairs and upgrades often lag behind requirements. While there are passenger services, the capacity to accommodate passengers is limited, and the quality of service is often not competitive with that road transport. The rail network's ability to connect efficiently with other transport modes, such as road and rail, is essential for a holistic transport system. While some intermodal facilities exist, there is need for better integration and logistics hub to facilitate smoother transitions between the transport modes. Government and private sector have shown interest in revitalizing the rail system through investments, PPPs, and collaboration with international financial institutions. Initiatives to enhance the rail network are crucial for economic development of Zambia. What are some of the recommendations that PMRC is offering henceforth? There is need to expedite the amendment of the Rail Act of 1994 to modernize the regulatory framework to meet current industrial standards and safety requirements. Government is urged to continue fostering partnerships with the private sector to mobilize capital for rehabilitation and expansion of rail infrastructure, including a focus on modernizing tracks, signaling system, and rolling stock. There is need for government to allocate sufficient budgetary resources for the maintenance and upgrading of the existing infrastructure. There is need for government to establish integrated transport logistics hubs that connect rail with road, air, and waterways to provide comprehensive transport solutions, improving efficiency and reducing cost. Government and key stakeholders within the rail subsector need to create awareness campaigns that highlight the economic benefits and environmental advantages of rail transport to both business and consumers to stimulate demand from rail services. In conclusion, the rail transport subsector in Zambia holds significant potential for enhancing the country's socioeconomic development, but its current state is hampered by outdated legal framework, inadequate infrastructure, and competition from other transport modes. The analysis highlights the critical need for concerted effort to modernize the rail system through legislative reforms, investment in infrastructure, and strategic partnerships. By adopting best practices from southern region, Zambia can revitalize its rail network, making it more attractive and efficient mode of transport. Effectively addressing the challenges and enhancing the available opportunities will lead to improved connectivity, enhanced trade, and more competitive economy. A robust and well-functioning rail systems will not only facilitate domestic economic activities, but also integrate Zambia more efficiently into regional transport networks, ultimately contribute to national growth and development. Thank you, Chair. I submit.
Some of the submissions you give us as a committee which constitutes lawmakers on what you want amended in order to meet the modernization process you are talking about?
This is a very important subject, Chair, where we are looking at the rail system in our country. And I would like to find out from your witness what could be the best practice which we can adapt. We are looking at modernizing the rail. We've noticed that much of our rail is actually dilapidated because it was built a long time ago. If you go to countries like Tanzania, where we had the privilege, we went to benchmark, we had an opportunity to look at the new infrastructure, rail infrastructure which they are putting, which will have that speed, high speed. And this, of course, you can see in other countries, European countries, they are having similar infrastructure. So in your view, what can you advise specifically can we undertake a new rail with similar to what we've seen in other countries like Tanzania, or we can rehabilitate the current rail infrastructure that we have? I need your take on that.
In terms of amendments, we are trying to see if there will be a creation of an agency such as RDA, so that one should be mandated for maintenance, what we leave the operations.
Can you just supplement that? What is RDA?
Zambia Road Development Agency. So it could have like an agency, like we know the road subsector has a road development agency that has to deal with issues of rehabilitation and development. So that will be a part of amendments and consideration for the Act, so that we leave Zambia Rail Limited to just operations of the locomotive, as opposed to doing both maintenance and operations of the locomotives. So that's some of the amendments that we'd like to see. Coming to the questions on modernization and what model we should take as a country. We could go both to rehabilitate the current one, but then also having an introduction of a side rail where you have the old ones working, but then also side by side you have the modernized, the electrical trains, so that those operate side by side. For example, as you said in Tanzania, where you went to see how that is being done, there's where the road to the airport, there's an introduction of electric buses. So where there's locomotives are moving, electric buses are moving, as well as normal transport is also moving. So there's need, because where we are right now as a country, where we say we suddenly overhaul and just go modern, where we go electrical, our funds then cannot allow. So it's something where we try to rehabilitate what we want to improve the existing one, then also start to develop an extra rail that will ensure that there is electric locomotives that should be moving. Thank you.
My question will basically principally be around the PPPs. One of the biggest challenges that the rail systems or the road system seems to face, or the center of the challenges is the lack of financial resource to bring about the much needed transformation in the sector. I don't know if you've, for example, paid attention to what Professor Clive Chirwa had proposed for the sector, and brilliant ideas. But again, the issue is where do you get the money, to bring about that sort of transformation. If Zambia is to become the hub for regional rail logistics, both at SADC and COMESA levels, that is a direction we need to go, but the issue becomes resources. From the point of view of PMRC, what would be your submission around embracing PPPs, embracing PPPs in this transformation that we so dearly need to undertake? I said this with reference to, I know Kenya has the SGR, which has a PPP model, and I think it has delivered. As well as I think countries like India, the PPP model has been able to deliver. So what would PMRC recommend in the context of the PPR, the need for resource mobilization, but also positioning ourselves to become that hub for rail transportation and logistics at COMESA and SADC level?
So PPP model is one of the options that government should take to modernize our rail subsector. Coming into 2022, actually PMRC did a study to see how the PPP model would work for the transport sector. This was with support from the Chinese embassy in Lusaka, and that was one. And one of the recommendations was that if government would go back to, there were people that really helped, especially with developing the Tazara, who are the Chinese government, to see if a PPP model would work. And we saw part of the recommendations that we saw the signing in of some of the business deals that happened when there was the last FOCAC. Another source of funding that government can look at for funding for the rail in terms of the PPP is the World Bank, FDB. These have been some of the sources of funding, especially for the rail modernization in Tanzania. So PPPs are very critical for Zambia, especially as we are going towards the pronounce of the copper 3 million metric tons. Most of that copper, if we even get to 1 million or we get to 1.5, will have to be moved by rail. So there offers an opportunity for Zambia to go into a PPP. The coming in of critical minerals also then provides an opportunity for Zambia to look at the PPP model, especially for transportation of minerals regarding the rail subsector. Thank you.
Witness, there has been a growing trend, particularly in major towns where the rail line passes, due to the growing population and their appetite for land in terms of expansion and development. We have continued to encroach in the area where the rail line passes, which poses security concerns in case of any derailment in future. What is your take to the authority? Because as we strive to revive the rail sector, of course this trend tends to hamper what we are looking at. What is your take on this to the relevant authority for the survival of the railway sector?
You submitted in your submission that for the rail sector to improve in Zambia, we need to actually do an alternative of starting another rail line whilst the other old rail line is running, if we are to talk about the speed. Now, you find that, as the honorable members mentioned, the rail line land has been heavily encroached from Livingstone probably to Chidlabombwe. How are we going to attend this if we have failed to protect the land that belongs to the rail line or Zambia Railways? What is your take? What do you tell the executive on that one? Thank you.
So the problems with encroachment is as a result of the deterioration of the rule of law in the country. For example, the local authority are to blame for some of the encroachments that happen. So it seems there is need phase of an overhaul of most of our local authorities. An example is that police station that was built around Kawata, known as Richard Kachimwe. That is almost into the rail. So building permits are done by the city, by the local authorities within Lusaka and everywhere else within Lusaka. So there is need for the local authority then to be, whether it's to be capacitated or for an overhaul in our how we plan. Because it's not only in the rail where there's been encroachment. The local authorities in most of these local councils have demarcated land that is not meant to be demarcated. So it's like there's a disjoint between the local authorities, usually the planning authority, especially for where buildings should be done. Like planning is for the local authorities. So there's a disjoint between the local authority and what is supposed to be the reality is. Because the local authority planning should be integrated then into the rail planning department, that is Tazara and Zambia Rail Limited. But then there should also be integration also between the planning authority and ZESCO. But that's not what we see. These local authorities go on and on to demarcate land, but then also allow for demarcation of land if people recognize land that they would like to build on. The example that I gave where Richard Kachimwe is along that same rail, as you are going towards Libala, a lot of people built on the rail. So if there is need today for us to say we are developing a new rail, there will be need to demolish those houses. But what comes in? political influence also comes in. So the moment also we just try to depoliticize issues of urban planning, issues of building planning, then we'll see that some encroachment also will end, especially on critical infrastructure such as well as water and sewer and sanitation. Thank you.
What would you suggest to this committee in terms of infrastructure being built from the rail line? What would be the distance that one should be able to build, or what should be the space between the rail line and the infrastructure development or the habitat?
You might have to go and look at best practice and see what's being done in other countries. But from a layman's point of view, I think as long as there's enough space for future expansion and activity to take place without interference from infrastructure that's too close to the railway line, then I think you're on the right track. But you might have to go and do a bit more research and come up with a more detailed answer on the appropriate